What if the night you decided to grab some takeout, you stumbled into the end of your entire world? It was supposed to be a typical Tuesday, a quiet evening where I, Jasper Daring, should have been tucked away in bed, dreaming. Instead, I found myself wide awake, clutching a bag of greasy barbecue ribs and walking directly into a nightmare I never saw coming. Myra, my wife of 7 years, a woman with striking auburn hair and eyes the color of a stormy sea, usually dressed in sleek, minimalist fashion, had claimed to be unwell. One of those screen fatigue headaches, she'd explained, pulling her knit cardigan tighter around her. She'd asked if we could skip our usual dinner date, needing peace and quiet. I'd agreed, as I always did, ever eager to accommodate her needs. She'd emphasized needing absolute rest. No sound, no bright lights, just the soft lull of darkness. So, I'd moved around our spacious apartment like a nervous butler, placing a glass of water on our nightstand, dimming the smart lights, and ensuring her phone was silently charging. I was meticulously checking off all the boxes, except one. I'd forgotten to eat. It was well past 10 p.m. when the insistent growl of my stomach became too loud to ignore. Cooking was out. The kitchen was too close to our bedroom, the clatter of pots and pans too greater risk to her fragile rest. So, I'd opted for a quick barbecue run. The establishment was a 24-hour joint, tucked away on the grittier side of town. The air inside was thick with the scent of hickory smoke and fried onions. Exactly the kind of unpretentious comfort I craved. I placed an order for ribs, a side of crisp fries, and a square of sweet cornbread. While I waited, I idly checked our shared tablet, a device we'd linked years ago after a software update and never bothered to unlink. That's when it happened. Ready to learn the shocking truth hidden in plain sight? The screen lit up, displaying Myra's latest message exchange. It read, "Make sure the booth is in the back. I don't want anyone from his office seeing me." His office? My blood ran cold. Every fiber of my being screamed to stop reading, to pretend I hadn't seen it. I tried to rationalize a friend, a colleague, a surprise party, something innocent. But a chilling certainty settled over me. I knew. You always know. I snapped at the cook, urging him to box my order faster, paid him with trembling hands, and practically ran out the door. The address from the message was already etched into my memory. A place called the Crimson Velvet, a trendy downtown lounge neither of us had ever frequented. It was one of those spots that pretended to be an exclusive hideaway, but charged exorbitant prices for curated experiences instead of actual menus. I walked in, the takeout bag still clutched in my hand, the aroma of barbecue a stark contrast to the cloying scent of designer perfume and expensive spirits. And there she was, not in her soft, worn pajamas, not cocooned in the comforting dark of our bedroom. Myra was radiant, her lips painted a bold crimson, her feet adorned with sleek, black stiletto heels. That shimmering emerald silk blouse I'd given her last Christmas, the one she dismissed as too flamboyant for real life, clung perfectly to her. Her hand, adorned with our wedding ring, rested casually on the forearm of a man in a tailored charcoal jacket. He leaned in, whispering something that made her laugh, a bright, unrestrained sound I hadn't heard from her in months. Their frosted cocktails sparkled between them, like tiny, treacherous beacons. She didn't see me at first. I stood for a moment, half hidden behind an oversized potted palm near the window, feeling like a caricature in some B-grade drama, watching my wife joke, sit, touch, and lie. I glanced down at the simple gold band on my own hand. It felt alien, a prop in a play where I was clearly not the lead. So, I did something I never imagined I would. I took it off. Slowly, deliberately, I walked toward their booth. The world seemed to slow around me, the muffled chatter of the lounge receding. I placed a warm takeout bag on the pristine oak table, directly between them. Then, I pulled the ring from my pocket, clenched it in my fist for a silent, agonizing moment, and gently laid it beside her cocktail glass. "Figured you'd still want dinner," I said, my voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through the din. Her face crumpled, her carefully constructed smile dissolving into genuine shock. The man beside her looked like a deer caught in the headlights of an oncoming train. I turned and walked away. No shouting, no histrionics, just a man exiting a scene with sauce-stained fingers and a heart he no longer recognized. And believe me, that was only the beginning. I drove for what felt like an eternity that night, the ribs forgotten in their paper bag on the passenger seat, her wedding ring a cold, metallic gleam on the dashboard. My chest felt like it had been filled with molten lead. I kept telling myself I'd handled it with grace, that I'd been calm, mature, composed, that I hadn't made a scene. But in the pit of my stomach, I knew the raw, brutal truth. I was invisible, forgotten, just a man delivering dinner to the wrong woman. Going home was impossible. I couldn't face the ghost of what we were. I pulled into the deserted parking lot of an all-night laundromat, the fluorescent hum of the dryers a bizarre backdrop to my shattered reality. It felt surreal, thinking that mere minutes ago, I had been an unwitting participant in a lie I called a marriage. My mind was a whirlwind of unanswered questions. Who was that guy? How long had this been festering? Why wasn't I enough? My phone vibrated, jolting me back to the present. The screen glowed with her name, Myra Home. The timestamp read precisely 12:03 a.m. I stared at it for an agonizing minute, my thumb hovering over the answer button, before finally connecting the call. I didn't speak. I just listened. What I hadn't anticipated was hearing her already talking, her voice a panicked, hushed murmur. She must have thought the call hadn't gone through, or perhaps she'd dialed me accidentally. Regardless, her words, though soft, were devastatingly clear. She was crying. I didn't think he'd actually show up. No, I have no idea how he found us. He just walked in and put the ring down. A beat of silence. Then, a man's voice, muffled but unmistakable, him. So what now? Is it really over between you two? Her reply was barely a whisper. It's been over for a while. I just never said it out loud. That sentence hit me harder than any physical blow. It was a kick to the ribs that echoed the empty space in my chest. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles stark white. Every instinct screamed at me to hang up, to escape the auditory torture, but I couldn't. She continued, twisting the knife even deeper. He's not a bad man, really. He's just tired. Small. Like life's already chipped away at him. Small. This single word, more than any other, sliced through me with the force of 1,000 betrayals. And you? The man's voice prompted, gentle now. With you, I feel like me. Not like his wife. Just me. I ended the call. There was nothing left to hear. That night, I slept in the cramped back seat of my car, parked inconspicuously behind a gas station, an old emergency blanket from under the seat offering scant comfort. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the beige ceiling of the car, watching the hours tick by until the first sliver of dawn pierced the darkness. And when the sun finally rose, casting long, pale shadows, I drove back. Not to plead, not to argue, not to salvage. I had one singular, unwavering plan. I would disappear from her life the same way she had vanished from mine. Quietly, I arrived back at the apartment around 8 a.m. Only a few hours had passed, but everything already felt foreign, like I was stepping into someone else's existence. I hadn't expected her to be awake, but as I pushed open the door, the faint scent of brewing coffee and a soft melody drifted from the kitchen. Myra was there, making coffee as if the world hadn't imploded. Still in the same clothes as last night, her stiletto heels kicked off near the door, lipstick smudged. She looked up, a faint, unsettling smirk playing on her lips. Didn't expect you back so early, she said, her tone implying I was the one who should feel shame. I didn't say a word. I walked past her, straight to the bedroom, pulled my battered duffel bag from the closet, and began to pack. Underwear, socks, a few plain shirts, my toothbrush. Nothing sentimental, nothing that carried her scent or the weight of our shared memories. She leaned against the doorframe, watching me, her expression unreadable. You're seriously doing this over a drink? I froze, my hand hovering over a folded shirt. Over a drink? She shrugged, a dismissive gesture. It's not like I slept with him. We were just talking. That wasn't what I'd heard last night. She saw the raw hurt on my face and scoffed. What? Were you spying on me, Jasper? No, I said, my voice a quiet, resolute hum as I zipped the bag. You called me by accident. Her smile vanished. For a fleeting second, a flicker of something akin to understanding crossed her face. Then, she shook her head and let out a brittle, mocking laugh. Of course. You just sat there listening like some sad, little puppy. That was it. That was the final, devastating blow. I stood there, duffel bag in hand, staring at the woman I had once written clumsy poetry for, the woman I used to wake up early to make coffee for, even though I didn't drink it myself, the woman I had envisioned as the mother of our children. And she was looking at me as if I were a joke. "You know what's funny?" she said, her arms now crossed over her chest, a defiant stance. "You think this is about him, but it's not. I didn't go looking for someone else. I just got tired of being married to a man who acts like a ghost in his own house." I offer no response. What could I possibly say? I knew I wasn't perfect. I let myself fade over the years, retreating into my job, into the background hum of bills and responsibilities, into the monotony of broken routines. But I had never stopped loving her. Not once. She followed me to the apartment door, her voice dropping to a low, insistent tone. "You're not going to tell anyone about this, right? I mean, let's just be adults. No drama." I turned to her, finally letting my voice rise just a fraction. "You had an affair, Myra. You're still in the same clothes from last night. You came home and didn't even bother to hide it. And now you're asking me for discretion?" She rolled her eyes, a gesture of exasperation. "It wasn't an affair. It was a spark. Something I haven't felt in years. That was it. No apology. No remorse. Just self-justification." I left, and just as I reached the parking lot, a chilling realization hit me. Her phone. She hadn't once asked if I'd recorded that call. She hadn't asked what I'd heard. She didn't care, because she simply didn't think I would do anything about it. I didn't go to a hotel. I couldn't afford one. I drove back to the familiar, sterile comfort of my office parking lot and slept in my car, my jacket a crumpled pillow, trying desperately to convince myself this was just temporary. But at precisely 6:45 a.m., I walked into work as if nothing had happened, as if my world hadn't imploded a mere 12 hours earlier over barbecue ribs and a misplaced wedding ring. No one noticed. They never do. Around lunchtime, I found myself alone in the break room, staring at the same bland turkey sandwich I'd been packing for the last 5 years. Same whole wheat bread, same sad, processed slices. That's when something inside me snapped. Not a loud, messy explosion, but a quiet, resolute click. It was a realization that I didn't need to scream to be heard. I just needed to be seen, truly seen for once. I logged out early and drove straight to Myra's office building. Now, before you judge, let me be clear. No, I wasn't planning anything dramatic. I wasn't there to confront her in front of her colleagues, to stage a scene worthy of a Hollywood movie. I was there for something far simpler, yet infinitely more powerful. I had written her a letter. 3 pages, handwritten, devoid of shouting or accusations, just the unvarnished truth. I recounted what I'd overheard on that accidental call. I described the gut-wrenching feeling of walking into the crimson velvet. I reminded her of who we used to be and how I had slowly faded into the background of a marriage where only one of us was still fighting. And I ended the letter with a single, unshakable line. "You don't have to choose me, Myra, but you don't get to keep breaking me either." I sealed it in a plain envelope, drove into the echoing underground parking garage of her building, and left it on the windshield of her sleek, silver sedan. Then I drove away. I expected a text, perhaps a phone call, maybe a long, awkward apology, or even a denial. I braced for her to twist the narrative, to accuse me of spying, of being paranoid. But none of that happened. Instead, the very next morning, my phone buzzed at precisely 7:03 a.m. with a notification from our shared bank account. She had transferred $4,200 out of it. No explanation, no message, just a stark, unapologetic withdrawal. I called the bank. They confirmed it was her, said it wasn't flagged because it fell within the terms of our joint account. I sat there on the floor of my now empty apartment, no furniture, just the hollow echo of my own breath, and realized she wasn't going to respond to my letter. She was going to erase me. And the part that twisted the knife deepest? That money was everything we'd saved for a long-planned trip to Oregon. A trip she had wanted, a trip we'd meticulously planned together, bookmarking rustic restaurants, mapping out scenic hikes. She'd use it like it was pocket change, disposable and insignificant. Later that day, she finally messaged me. Not to explain, not to apologize. It simply read, "I saw your letter. Honestly, I didn't read it all. What do you want me to say? I moved on. You should too." I stared at those words for a long time. Not because I was surprised. I wasn't, but because in that moment, I realized something dangerous. Here's what no one tells you about ultimate betrayal. it leaves you with absolutely nothing left to lose. The morning after the money vanished from our account, I sat alone in a quiet coffee shop across from the courthouse. I rarely drank coffee, but I needed their Wi-Fi and a table large enough to spread out my few possessions. My laptop, a worn manila folder crammed with documents, a pen that barely worked, and an idea I hadn't dared to truly consider until this very moment. What if I stopped protecting her? I'd always been the quiet husband, the fixer, the peacekeeper. Even when she mocked me, lied to me, and drained our joint savings without so much as a conversation, I had still clung to dignity like it was the last lifeboat. But now, that version of me was dead. That's when I made the first call. Not to her. To my cousin, Lionel Daring, in Oregon, the very same cousin we were supposed to visit with that vanished money. I asked if he still worked with our family lawyer. He did. Within 2 hours, I had an appointment scheduled for the next morning. Clean. Simple. No fireworks. Just the beginning of the end. I didn't tell her. Instead, I went home to the echoing silence of the apartment and began gathering the few remaining things that were truly mine. Clothes, a stack of beloved books, my passport. I didn't even bother with the framed photos. They felt like lies masquerading as memories. I left those for her. But here's where things got messy. Around midnight, my phone vibrated with an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, but something in me, a flicker of morbid curiosity, perhaps a surge of lingering bitterness, prompted me to answer. Hey, a voice I didn't expect said. It was him. Marcus Thorne, the man from the bar. Look, he began, clearing his throat awkwardly. I had no idea she was married. She told me you two were separated. I didn't respond. He continued, his voice tinged with genuine concern. She blocked me yesterday, said she needed space, but something's not right. She seems unstable. I thought you should know. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because this stranger was now warning me about my wife. The same woman I had protected for years. The same woman who had called me small. Now, suddenly, she was ghosting him too. He went on. She said some stuff that freaked me out about starting fresh, leaving everything behind. Even talked about quitting her job. My stomach plummeted. This wasn't a messy breakup. This was an escape plan. And then, something clicked, sending a chill through my veins. 3 weeks ago, a small, official-looking envelope had arrived at our apartment. Myra had casually dismissed it as junk mail, tossing it into the recycling bin before I could get a good look. I now vividly remembered it had her name in the corner and a return address in Austin. Her sister lives in Austin. I called her sister's number. No answer. I sent a message. It remained unread. Something significant was unfolding behind the scenes, and for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to know what it was. But I was unequivocally done being the last one to find out. I opened my laptop and accessed our shared cloud storage. She didn't know I still had access, or perhaps she'd forgotten. What I'm about to show you is banned in 12 countries, or at least, it should be. I hadn't logged into our shared drive in over a year. Myra typically used it for tax files and apartment paperwork. Honestly, I'd never given it a second thought. But that night, with my hands trembling and my heart buzzing like static, I remembered she used the same simple password for almost everything. I typed it in. It worked. Inside, it looked like the usual assortment. PDFs, old bank statements, scanned receipts. But then I saw it. A folder, stark and unassuming, simply labeled Restart. No date, no explanation. I clicked it open, half expecting to find a resume, some speculative job applications, maybe even a private journal. But what I saw next made my stomach clench with an icy grip. Dozens of documents. A signed lease for a loft apartment in Austin, starting next week. Her name was on it. The new address, overlooking the city skyline. The exact address from the envelope she'd discarded weeks ago. A job offer, also in Austin, dated 2 months back. She'd accepted it. The salary was more than double what she made now. An email draft to her current employer, with the subject line, resignation effective immediately. She had never sent it. But the real gut punch came when I found a scanned bank application for a solo account, opened 6 months ago. In it, she had listed her marital status as separated. Not married, not complicated, just clean and clear, separated. And there was already a significant amount of money in it. She'd been planning this long before that night at the bar. I sat there, staring at the screen, a bitter realization dawning. I was never part of her new beginning. I was her baggage, something to quietly jettison before her real story began. But she wasn't done yet. Near the bottom of the restart folder was a single document named List. I almost didn't open it. I don't know why. Perhaps I thought it would be some innocuous moving checklist. Or maybe, deep down, I knew it would be worse. It was a list of 15 items she needed to do before leaving town. Number 1, transfer savings. Number 5, block him on socials. Number 9, change emergency contact. And number 15, leave ring in drawer. Let him figure it out. I don't know how long I sat there, paralyzed, staring at that single sentence. It was more brutal than the affair. More brutal than the stolen money. Because it was cold. Calculated. As if I wasn't even a person anymore. Just a minor detail in her meticulously crafted exit strategy. That's when something in me flipped. I wasn't going to stop her, no. But I wasn't going to let her control the ending either. So, I started printing. All of it. Every file, every email, every lease agreement. I gathered it into a binder, labeled the front in big, bold letters, the restart files. Then, I sent it to 3 people, her boss, her father, and our family lawyer, Reginald Thistle. What happened next was nuclear. It was 2 days after I sent the binder when a sharp, insistent knock rattled my apartment door. Not a call, not a text, just a loud, confident rap, the sound of someone accustomed to being in control. I opened it slowly, half expecting to see Myra alone, perhaps disheveled, perhaps ready to talk her way out of it. But she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a man in a crisp blazer and perfectly pressed khakis, holding a sleek leather folder and an expression that screamed authority. Myra didn't look angry. She looked smug. "I told you he'd be dramatic," she said to the man, her eyes flicking toward me as if I were a misbehaving child. But I didn't think he'd actually send it. The man stepped forward, his voice smooth and professional. "Mr. Daring, my name is Reginald Thistle. I represent Myra in her personal and legal affairs. We're here to retrieve some private documents you may have accessed without her permission." I blinked. "You mean the folder she left in our shared cloud account?" He didn't respond, his expression impassive. Myra crossed her arms, her composure unwavering. "You sent my employer confidential information, including financial documents, private emails, and an unsigned resignation letter." "Unsigned?" I corrected, a quiet defiance in my tone. "So you're upset I beat you to it." Her jaw clenched, a tiny crack in her smug veneer. "You humiliated me, Jasper." I almost laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "You made a 15-step checklist to abandon me, Myra. You lied. You drained our savings. You planned to vanish without a trace." Reginald raised a manicured hand, cutting through the rising tension. "We're not here to debate emotions. We're here to ask you respectfully to delete all files from your devices and confirm in writing that you've done so." I stepped back, leaving the door wide open. "You can come in, but there's nothing to delete." He hesitated, his gaze sweeping over the Spartan, empty apartment. "You're saying the documents are gone?" "No," I said, my voice steady. "I'm saying they're already distributed, digitally and physically, multiple copies in multiple hands. You can take the original binder for all I care, but the truth's already out." For the first time, Myra's confidence visibly cracked. Reginald narrowed his eyes, his gaze piercing. "What exactly did you hope to achieve with this exposure?" "I didn't want revenge," I said honestly, the words echoing in the empty space. "I wanted clarity, and I got it. From her boss, her father, and a lawyer we both used to trust. Now everyone knows who they're really dealing with." Myra's tone turned frigid, laced with pure venom. "You're pathetic." I nodded slowly. "Maybe, but I'm done being the one who tiptoes around other people's lies. You want to leave? Fine, but you don't get to rewrite the story and walk away smelling like roses." She stormed off without another word, her heels clicking angrily down the hall. Reginald lingered at the door for a second, his gaze contemplative. "You know this will escalate things." "I'm counting on it," I said, meeting his stare evenly, "because for once, I'm not hiding." He gave a tight nod, then followed Myra out. That night, I received a message from her father. 3 words, "I'm sorry, son." And the next morning, a different letter arrived. Not from Myra, from her employer. The envelope was plain, devoid of any corporate logo, just my name typed cleanly across the front. I opened it at my kitchen counter, the only piece of furniture left in my apartment, the morning light casting a stark glow on the page. Inside was a letter from Myra's executive office, not her direct supervisor, but a senior HR representative. They had received my binder. They had read every page, compared her active contracts, and cross-referenced the time-stamped files I'd attached. Their response was firm. They thanked me for the information. They explained that Myra had violated several internal policies, specifically related to false representation, non-disclosure of parallel employment, and planned departure during ongoing confidential projects. Her job offer in Austin? It was rescinded. The company had pulled the plug, effective immediately. But that wasn't even the biggest twist. Along with the letter, they attached a recommendation for me. Apparently, someone from HR had flagged my name after reviewing the binder and doing a little digging. I've been listed as a technical analyst on a few joint tax documents and possess some overlooked credentials and data compliance certifications. Certifications I never actively pursued because Myra had always dismissed them as a waste of time. Now, they were offering me a position, higher pay, fully remote, a clean start. I just sat there, holding that letter, rereading the words like they might vanish into thin air. For the first time in months, I felt something inside me shift. Not anger, not pride, but something quieter, deeper. Relief. That evening, I boxed the last of my things. No drama, no goodbye notes, just a quiet walk out of a place that had stopped feeling like home a long, long time ago. I didn't leave the ring. I didn't owe her another symbol. I owed myself something new. 2 weeks later, I moved to a different city. Not Austin, but somewhere smaller, slower. I started a new job. I made my own schedule, found a quiet apartment with sunlight streaming through windows overlooking ancient trees. I even started painting again, a passion I'd abandoned during the second year of our marriage. Funny how betrayal sometimes clears the path for rediscovery. She messaged once. Just once. No apology, just a single line. I hope you're happy. I didn't reply. Not out of bitterness, but because I finally was. And perhaps that's the most unexpected twist of all. I didn't get revenge. I didn't win in any conventional sense. But I walked away with something far more valuable than justice. I walked away free.